Thanks for having me. As Chris said, my name is Ed Kaiser, and just by way of introduction, I work here at the university. I'm in the plant pathology and environmental microbiology department. Yeah, Freddie's on our. We're on the same floor together. He's right across the hall, and Buckout building, right over by the Chem Life Science building, and my wife and I have lived here in State College since the year 2004. And so I'll tell you a little about my story. Walt asked that I share, and I'd like to begin and just say a little bit about my home life, which was a very loving home. My sister and I, mom and dad, and we were churchgoers. And the church tradition that I came out of in a Protestant church, I'd have to say that the message that I heard there was try to be a better person. And so I heard about God, knew about Him, but I don't think I really connected with who He was in my process of growing up. But God was at work in my life. And I'll give you one example of that. So when I was around 12 years old or so, my family went on a vacation. We were by an ocean setting in a kind of a seaside resort. And I remember walking by and I saw two men, and they were standing in front of a table, and they had some literature on it. And I thought they were giving something away free. And I said, I stopped and I said, what is it that you have there? And they said, take some of this and read it. This will be of interest to you. So I took it and I went back. It was a Christian tract. It had cartoons in it and explained the Christian message to me. It was about 12 years old. It had a big impact on me. I thought, wow, this is very interesting. It really moved my heart to know more about who Jesus was and our need for Him and so forth. And it had a prayer at the end, and I prayed it. And I just was scared and kind of impacted by all of these things. But I was only 12 years old, and my church tradition didn't help me to understand that. And so life drifted on, and I just went about my life and went to my church and so forth. And then but I still had this yearning. There was something at work in my heart, and I would turn into Christian radio, which there's a special radio broadcast that had Christian programming, and I would listen to that, and I would find that interesting, and I would sometimes send away for the literature. But without other Christians and other believers, I wasn't really growing in my faith or knowing more about who God was. And then the college years began. So then I moved out of my home, and I was in a university setting, University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky. Began as an undergraduate there, and now I'm away from home for the first time. And I remember going through my dorm room, and on every floor there was a little poster that said, Jesus Christ, superstar or son of God? Question mark. And they particularly said a room number that you would go to, and I took note of that. And I actually went to this particular meeting, and I heard more about what it meant to be a believer. And I thought, this is some of the things that have been stirring in my heart. And I got more involved with this group and attended more of their meetings and got into a small discipleship group with other men. It was called an action group. And there, I think I really had my eyes open to who God was, and the big difference was I was with other believers. And they encouraged me in my faith, and I think God was really working in my heart to draw me to Himself. And through that process, I understood that I needed to make a decision. It was one thing to just hear about God, and mentally, take all this in, but I had to kind of make this kind of distance, from here, from the head to the heart. It's called a long 18-inch journey. And there, I understood that I needed to make a decision and not only hear about Christ and know things, but also to invite Him into my heart and just really connect with who He was. And I did that. I took that step of faith. And I have to say that it made a big difference in my life. I felt like a big weight of the burden of all the bad things that I've done in my life was lifted. It was great joy. But I also understood that there was an unseen enemy that was at work that wanted to undermine who I was and following God. And that was very new to me. And but I was encouraged in my faith to understand the Word of God, understand who I was, and had other believers with me, which made a big difference. thing I think that I've really learned and become aware of through my journey is that you don't live life alone. And you live life in community. And John and Sunny, who we know very well, John shared a proverb that's in Korean, and I won't say it to you in Korean, I will say it to you in English. And it goes this way. It says that when we have joy and we share it with others, the joy gets multiplied. When we have sorrow and we share it, it gets divided. And there's a wonderful dynamic of being in community that those joys that you have, when you share them with others, people rejoice with you. It makes the joy even more so. And then when you go through tough times, or other people go through tough times, you come alongside them and you share that sorrow with them, and it gets divided. And I think that is a wonderful summary of what life is like in community. We have that great blessing in Christian community. And I have to think that this setting right here was what happened to me when I was a first believer and came into that community, and I understood it more as I was joined with other believers. And I have wonderful memories as a college student finding out about who God was with other believers. So let me just close with a passage that I think summarizes, these things that I shared about being born again, and then also the way God works in our lives. And Jesus talks about it as wind. Like you see the effects of wind. You see the trees bowing and things blowing around, but you don't see the wind. And I think it's a good picture of how God works in our lives. And so this is from the passage in John's Gospel, chapter 3, Jesus and Nicodemus. It goes this way. Jesus answered, "I tell you the truth. No one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit. You should not be surprised at my saying, you must be born again. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit." So thank you for listening.